what they usually get out of their livestock. If we take the example of people who are selling wool and mohair, the ability of the animals to produce good wool and good mohair will decrease, because in fact their mere survival will be threatened if there's no water for them. So, and rangers have also been affected by the drought. So that is the overall picture, and it is definitely a worrying picture.
We also see in the report that you specifically mentioned the situation of women and girls.
Yeah.
We've seen the world over, not just in Lesotho, in any place where there's conflict, where there's a crisis, the vulnerability levels of women and girls increases. Let's talk about the possibility of sexual abuse and exploitation in exchange for food and things to that effect. And even the possibility of some of the girls dropping out of school, and then obviously the rise in the child marriages as well. Is there anything specific? I know you've undertaken all these efforts, but is there anything specific, because to women and girls, that you're looking at? Because one of the things, obviously, whatever gains the country has made in terms of the empowerment of women will be lost if such situations that directly affect them are not addressed. Is there anything specific to women and girls in terms of your intervention?
Yes, there is, and I will answer that question by referring to what we have done already under the SURF funds, the Central Emergency Relief Funds, and just to say that our intervention obviously addressed agriculture and food security, and it also addressed nutrition and health. It addressed protection. Now, I could go and detail each one of those, but I'll only zoom into the protection, because that's where the answer to your question is. The protection includes child protection. It also includes protection against gender-based violence, and it includes protection around migration issues. So what we have done specifically targeting women and girls is, first of all, protecting girl childs by giving them food so they can stay in school, and there are also already programs to combat or to fight child marriage, and different stakeholders involved in that. So we did that, and then on the other protection elements, gender-based violence and also migration, it is clear that the most vulnerable get even more vulnerable when there is food insecurity, because food, the right to food or access to food is an elementary, it's a basic need. And so we have seen, we have heard some anecdotes, and we have seen also instances of people who have been abused, including sexually abused, on their way to fetching water, or on their way to looking for firewood, or on their way to or back from school. You will see that in this report we indicate that about 43.7% of households in Lesotho, across Lesotho, are headed by women and sometimes girls, and so those have been hit by the drought, in the sense that about 12.5% of those had to go look for water much further than what they usually got to do, and on their way there, on their way back from there, then they also get abused, and either sexually or just otherwise abused. And so these are instances of situation that has taken place. So in our intervention, we have come up with programs, first of all, to share information and to sensitize people. In this case, not only women and girls, but also men, involving communications colleagues who went to deliver messages about gender-based violence and about sexual abuse and etc. So a small portion of the funding that we received, the $5.5 million that we received, has been targeted to those. The other element is on migration protection. As you know, we are surrounded by South Africa, and in most instances, some households in South Africa would be much better off than the households in Lesotho. And so a number of people have decided to leave, including dropping off from school, and going into South Africa to look for a job and look for some money so they can buy food. And in some cases also parents have married off their young girls just because they didn't have any food to put to the table, and with the hope that those who would be marrying to wealthier people, wealthier husbands, would get some money. The problem is, in some cases, those who have decided to run away to South Africa to look for a job or to look for an opportunity, sometimes they also land in difficult situations. Some of them have found themselves in a situation of human trafficking because unscrupulous people would take advantage of them, or others would simply mistreat them because they know they don't have any sort of recourse. They are illegal migrants, and therefore they cannot go to police, because if they go to police they will have to face their status of illegal migrants first, etc., etc. So the messaging that we as UN and our protection team was giving was basically giving them the information and also the tools, and to try and address the issues and the events, or report the events when they happen, and also give them the tools to protect themselves. There's a whole other health side, in particular HIV and risk-taking, that is also connected to that because of risky sexual behaviors that people are pushed into, not by choice, by lack of. So these are some of the interventions that we have put together to address the issues related to gender. I would like to finish by saying that even the food distribution itself is actually targeting quite a lot of women, because remember I told you that 47% of the rural households are headed by women, and sometimes by girls. So by bringing some food and perhaps also some money to access other key items, then you also decrease the likelihood of women taking those risks and finding themselves in those situations. So that's I think what I can say regarding the interventions targeting women and girls.
Okay, this 5.5 million US, you are saying that there is that likelihood that the numbers of the food insecure people may increase. Overall, how much would be required in an ideal situation? How much would be required in total? Do you have any estimates to deal with the situation, to address the situation?
Yes, there are estimates. As we speak, the government is in the process of finalizing a national drought response plan with our contribution and the contribution of other development partners. And the estimates are that there would be a total amount of $36.6 million US would be needed to address the current needs, the current food and security needs of the population. So that is the estimate that has been put forward. We, as United Nations, have a coordination mechanism that is called the Humanitarian Coordination Team, and that team includes UN agencies, some international NGOs, and the Red Cross movement. And so we have also done an estimate, and the estimate is slightly higher than that because it takes into account the logistics part of the previous estimate. So as you can see, these are big amounts, and these are amounts that need a lot of efforts to mobilize, because these are not amounts that the government has or the UN has. These are amounts that we have to mobilize with donors and development partners.
Okay. Previously, you've spoken about the need. Basically, the issue is this. There's been talk, not just about Lesotho, but about a whole lot of African countries, the dependency syndrome. While obviously the countries are developing things to that effect, they need the assistance, but there's talk that there's too much reliance on donor funding. When governments have got money, they get their priorities wrong. Like we have seen, if we give an example of Lesotho, back in 2017, about 400 million was diverted, which was meant for student loans, was diverted to elections, premature elections, because politicians were quarreling among themselves. And then, here we are in 2018 and 2019, we have a drought situation. What we are hearing, what we know so far, is that the UN has succeeded in mobilizing this amount, 5.5 million. And what we know, again, so far, is that the government is only working on a drought response plan right now. But this situation is a situation which was to be anticipated. Even a layman, even I know that there's El-Nino. From time to time, we're going to be having these droughts. So somebody would say that this is the equivalent of government acting when the horse is already bolted from the stable. And you yourself, you've said before in the past that the government needs to take the lead in terms of such interventions. And from where we are and the way we are looking at it, it looks like this advice to the government to take the lead and other international development